Mr. Norman's tips and tricks today class. Just as a side note, I did attempt to do this on a draw board on my tablet, and I could not get it done. And so I'm going to switch to Excel here. It should be easier to follow along, but it is important to know that the lines or the individual cells here in Excel would normally be hand drawn. If you can see where my mouse is at now, these lines right here, this horizontal line and these vertical lines here would normally be hand drawn to separate each of your units of measure as I teach you the train track method to converting units of measurement. Now what the train track method does is it allows a simple and visual way to follow along with where we are and where we want to be when we convert between units of measurement such as standard to metric, or even within its own self, such as the metric system from millimeters clear up to kilometers. This allows us to visually see the process and know where we are at. So in the train track method, what you would normally start to do is, number one, draw across your paper a horizontal line that runs clear across your paper. If this was your left margin, kind of over here where the three holes are for your notebook, and this would be the edge of your paper, you're going to draw it clear across the top. You don't need much room top to bottom, even though I have quite a bit. So the equation or the problem I want to throw out to you right now is, if I was traveling at 125 kilometers per hour, how many miles per hour is that going to be? Chances are you don't know that conversion right off the top of your head. So in your very, very top left kind of cell that you've drawn on your paper, you're going to, of course, write 125 kilometers. That division line, as you know, like miles per hour or meters per second, is always a dividing line. It means to divide. So on top, we have 125 kilometers. Anytime you have a per in the statement, it is this line right here. Think of this line as the per. So per 1 hour. So if I'm traveling at 125 kilometers per hour, how many miles per hour is that? So anytime we have a dividing line, you of course know that if you have equal measurements on top and on the bottom, they cancel out. So in the train track method, we could take this kilometers per hour, and we want to change this kilometers into miles. Well, we need to get rid of that kilometers. So on this next cell on the bottom, we're going to need to put kilometers so that the top and bottom cancel out. But we want to move it to standard units that we do know. So we can say, well, we know that every 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. Okay, that's a given statement. Well, even knowing very little about the metric system, we know that that is the case. So now we can see that this kilometer and this kilometer could cancel out. Now I can't do this on my computer in Excel, but you could in essence take, well, I can highlight it here. What you would normally do is on that kilometer, let's go back. What you would do is take this kilometer, right there, I've highlighted it in red, and this kilometer here, highlighted in red, and you would go ahead and put a slash through it, okay? We've now canceled out kilometer with kilometer. So as we move forward, here we have our 1,000 meters, but we don't want meters, we want miles. So we're going to need to put meters down here. So in order to do that, let's say we could have, for every 1 meter, we know that that's equivalent to 100 centimeters, right? That's another given. So again, we have meters here on the top, meters on the bottom. So we could go back up to the top here. We could take this meters, and we could take this meter here on the bottom, highlighted in red, and now they cancel out. Now we're left with centimeters per, there's our line, hour. Well, we don't want centimeters per hour. We want miles, but we're in the metric system. We need to get into standard units for this. Now, at the beginning of class, the beginning of the semester, there was a few units of conversion that we were required to memorize. At the top of that list, ladies and gentlemen, was for every 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So now we have, and we can always get between metric and standard using that memorization, which is why it was so important. So we could get down here and we want to get rid of centimeters. So we know that 2.54 centimeters is always an exact to 1 inch. Always, and this is an exact number. If you do have to worry about your sig figs, you know that 1 inch and 2.54 centimeters are exact. So again, I'm going to highlight the centimeters. You would be crossing them out on your paper, and you would see that centimeters cancels with centimeters. Centimeters on top, centimeters on bottom, they're gone. Now, we need to get from inches in the standard to miles in the standard. That's relatively simple. This we've learned all of our life, right? We know that for every 12 inches, we are going to travel, or it's equivalent to 1 foot. Okay, again, I'm going to do this just this time. Our next example, I will not take the time to highlight these, but these inches would now be canceled out, and you're dealing solely with feet here. You can see where I'm circling my mouse. So from down here, we know that for every 12, we're going to go 5,280 feet. Again, this was a unit of measurement that you were required to memorize. For every 5,280 feet, we travel 1 mile. So, last one we're canceling out. We can see that feet is now highlighted red on both top and bottom. You should be crossing that out on your paper. And you see that kilometers, meters, centimeters, inch, feet, all canceled out. We're left with miles on top. And on the bottom, we started with hours, and everything else, kilometers, meters, centimeters, inch, canceled out with something on top. So again, the only thing left on bottom is hours. We are left with mile per hour. Now we do plug and chug. You're all familiar with plug and chug. We love plug and chug. That is when we take the numbers across the top here, 125 multiplied by 1,000, multiplied by 100, multiplied by 1, multiplied by 1, multiplied by 1 will give us some number. We then take that number and divide it by the number that is found when we multiply 1 times 1 times 1 times 2.54 times 12 times 5,280. If you get those two numbers and run this just as a division, so number A, whatever number you get up here, divided by number B, whatever number you get down here, that will give you a number which has units of measurements of miles per hour. Now, if you're doing this all on a calculator, just remember that prior to multiplying your top line, right here where you see my mouse, you would need a parenthesis, okay? It would need to look something like this. I'm going to move this over. So 125 is where we're starting, right? So it would need to look something like this. 125 times 1,000 times 100 times 1 times 1 times 1. And then you would need to close your parenthesis prior to doing your division, which you would then reopen a parenthesis for your bottom line, which is 1 times 1 times 1 times 2.54, so on and so forth. So you'd have 1 times 1 times 1 times 2.54 times 12 times 5,280, close parenthesis. We're going to extend that out for you just a little bit so you can see that. And there we go. So that's how it should look like when you plug it into your TI-82 calculator with those parentheses. If you do not put those parentheses in, it will do its own order of operations and you're liable not to get the correct answer. But should you plug this number in, you will find that you have 77.67 miles per hour. And that was all done not knowing exactly how many kilometers equals to miles, solely by doing kilometers on top to bottom, canceling those out, and doing known units of conversion. We know that 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. We know that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. We know that 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch, so on and so forth. Okay, if we were to do this same thing, but over here in the hour, I put seconds. So now we are changing 2 units of measurement to where we want miles per hour, but we started with kilometers per second. The kilometers portion of it stays the same. This first part of the train track is identical. When we get to miles in the end, I'm going to go ahead and erase this for you guys here. You would just merely continue the train track, but now that we have miles on the top, we would need to change seconds to hours. So over here, you might put for every 60 seconds, there is 1 minute, right? Of course, the seconds here, we're going to go ahead and highlight in red for you, would cancel, and I'm going to scroll back with the seconds here. So now we can look across and we got, well, nothing here, but we're left with miles per minute. See, miles on the top, minutes on the bottom. So we need to go one more step and we say, well, for every 60 minutes, because we want to get rid of this minutes on the bottom, so we got to place a minute on the top. Let's go ahead and immediately we'll highlight this red here. For every 60 minutes, cancels with this minute, we know for every 60 minutes is 1 hour. So let's look across the top, red, 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 red. You should have these all crossed out except for mile, right? Mile is the only thing that should not be crossed out on the top, and hour, the only thing on the bottom. Here we are, everything else is crossed out. So we are left with miles per hour. We can plug and chug exactly the same. We'll start here with 125. In parentheses, we multiply across the top all the way, and then we come over here and we multiply across the bottom all the way. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave this open to you. If you would like to come to me in the morning and see, did I get the correct answer once I added or changed the seconds, let's go back to here. Once I changed from hours into seconds, you can come and see me, and that will also allow me to see that you are in fact utilizing these tips and tricks. And as always, if you come and see me with the correct answer, there will be 2 extra point credits for you. Should you have any questions, you of course know where my classroom is. You know that during homeroom or 0 hour and after school, I am always available to go over any questions with you. I hope this helps you and can get you moving through conversions a little quicker. As we've shown, it works from metric to American, standard, and it also works as we move from something simple as seconds into hours, which could then be into days, which could then be into months, years, etc. Thanks a lot, and I hope to see you guys in class.